So this is Kumo and Sully huddling by me. So I put Sully in my lap to get nice and comfy. And then I start with just the tip for each nail. And because I trim Kumo and Sully's nails a couple times a week, I generally don't need to trim that much. And you can see, because Sully has pale nails, I can really easily identify exactly where the quick is. And so afterward, I just go through and sort of round off and smooth out the edges, because the Dremel has a tendency to make the edges kind of sharp. You can see just by looking at it. And so I'll go around the sides and just a little bit at the bottom just to smooth those out, because my dogs tend to like to paw me and I would rather not get scraped by nails. Now I'm just moving on to the back, and I've found that the rear paws, the nails on them tend to be a little shorter, I think just because they get more wear and tear, at least on Boston Terriers, because they tend to be a little lighter on their feet in the front. And so I generally don't need to trim quite as much on the rear paws. But I still do like to round them out a little bit, though they do tend to be, I found, a little less pointy. And he's just being a good boy. Like, he'll really just chill, because Sully, more than anything, will do absolutely anything for a treat. And now I'm just doing the same. You can see very easily where the quick is. I usually don't go right to the quick. I'll go a little bit above it. Kumo, on the other hand, has very dark nails. And so I'll show when we get to him how I deal with that. And you'll notice Sully does not have, the reason I'm only doing 4 is he does not have his 5th dew claw. And now he's getting his treats, because it's all about the treats when you're Sully. Such a good boy. And now on to Kumo. I usually start him off with a treat because he needs a little more enticement to get his nails trimmed. You'll see something different with Kumo is, like I said, the dark nails. Generally, I'll just go off of, you can't see it, went a little bit off the camera in this portion, but I generally go off of, you can see there's this spot where the nail starts to curve a little. And so that's kind of my reference point. And just like you get a feel of it over the time, over how much of the tip needs to come off. And like I said, because I trim their nails pretty often, a couple times a week, I don't usually need to do that much. And sorry that you can't see it here. I GoPro on my head. So I'm kind of guesstimating where the camera is. And you can see I'm doing his 5th claw, which can be a little challenging and tends to be, for some reason, extremely sharp. And so I have to round that one off pretty well. Because Kumo is a long-haired dog, I am pulling back the fur that's over his claws. And that's just to access it, and so I don't accidentally trim it or anything. Another thing with long-haired dogs is the Dremel will get snagged in fur. And it stops, fortunately, but it tends to freak out the dog. So you want to avoid that when you can. And the way I do that is, if you notice, I will always kind of stretch out and pull the paw away from the rest of their body, so it's not resting against the rest of their fur, which is just a way to prevent. You can see I have it, like, rather than near his stomach or something, I have it more pulled out. And so when they were babies, It was a bit of a challenge to get them used to the Dremel because there's the sound and then there's the sensation. So what I did was I acclimated them to the sound first with treats, encouraging them to get closer and closer to the Dremel when it's on, but not touching them. And then I had it on their claws where I would just do one by one, but not on, and giving them a treat, a whole bunch of treats. And so separately, I got them used to the sound of the Dremel and then the sensation of the Dremel. And then the third part was moving on to the Dremel actually being on. And then just giving them lots of treats, giving them lots of time. If they weren't into it, I would let them kind of go away and then come back as they were comfortable. And then just over time, they get more and more used to it. Then they get the positive association because they get lots of treats. And you'll see I still give them treats. Kumo generally I think because his nail trimming takes a little longer because his nails are thicker, he will want a treat usually at the beginning, middle, and end. And Sully will usually get some at the end, and then they both get a bunch, like a special treat at the very end. And I have these really little peanut butter treats. If you look, they're these little morsels that I get from a local place called Polka Dog Bakery. And they're the perfect size because sometimes you need to give them more treats throughout. So I like them to be nice and little. So, you know, they're not picking out or anything. They're just little pieces. And they're such good boys and their nails are all done.